Hey everybody, welcome to the Growthentic Podcast with myself and Shane. This is episode 5.
Yeah, welcome everybody to the episode. Shane Chalupa and Sam Lee here. Got an exciting episode for you this week. We start out with some general updates both on the personal and professional fronts. We go into being a business owner while stepping away for a vacation and what it means to start and develop and build a business versus just creating a job. We then head into a new endeavor where Sam is looking at scaling up his business. And two big principles there that you're going to enjoy are the 10-80-10 rule, as well as what does that first hire look like and what our skill sets are required. And then we round it out with a really great ending talking about AI. And Sam runs us through a demonstration of how to use ChatGPT to create an actual GPT that you can train and utilize for SEO tasks where we use Obnovit and some keywords as a use case and study for this episode. Hope you enjoy it.
Enjoy, everybody. Hey Shane.
Hey, Sam, how's it going?
It's going well, man. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Happy Friday. We got some sunshine, warmer weather. I am back from vacation as of a week and a half ago, and we're back in full swing. So life is good.
Yeah, last time we talked, we filmed our last episode right before you hopped on the plane, literally. How was the trip? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Uh, again, just to catch everybody up, we do a yearly annual ski trip. I snowboard, the rest of the group skis. It's a few buddies from college. We go out somewhere, usually in the Rocky Mountains, anywhere in February or early March. Typically go for a whole week, get away, just the four of us, and really push the limits on the skiing side of things. This year we shortened it up a little bit, so I had a different travel schedule. So I was actually our last episode was in the airport on my way out. Got delayed significantly on the way out and had quite a journey, but I made it and my bags made it, which was impressive. And it was only about 10 p.m. or so when I got in, which wasn't horrible, but it made for like a I don't remember 20-hour travel day or something like that. So it was a long one, but it worked out and I was able to work and film a podcast episode all while traveling, so that was great. And yeah, the trip was really phenomenal. Great company with the guys, and then we did a lot more backcountry skiing this year where we actually go out, not even just into the mountains, basically find our own lines and hike for the run. So it's a great combination of exercise and then some reward where you're hiking for maybe an hour and then you get about 10 minutes of enjoyment on the way down. So it's a little lopsided in that regard, but a lot of fun, very peaceful way to connect with nature, have exercise, as well as a little bit of extreme sports built in there because you're riding through the trees and different natural terrain. So it's a overall great experience. One of my favorite things to do as far as hobbies go and decompression. That was fantastic, and also was the first time navigating going on vacation while owning and running the business, and had my biggest takeaway on that side of things of I didn't have the family with me, but like a personal vacation while having the business is when I would take a few hours in the morning before we would head out, and a lot of times before others were up, and do say like a block of time of an hour or 2 hours or three, and do work in there. And had a little Instagram clip on this about Parkinson's law of basically the amount of time you set for a task is how long it will end up taking. If you set a longer duration, the task will expand to fill it. And if you set a shorter duration, obviously there's a minimum floor there of how fast you could actually do something. But in theory, if you set kind of a reasonable, aggressive target, you can get a lot of work done in a very short amount of time. So I'm trying to think about how do I bring that back into the day to day where we have the traditional 8 hour a day work day, 40-hour work week. I am trying to let go and break those chains and then bring into this piece of how do I compress and get more out of a shorter amount of time with utilizing time blocking and figuring out how to manage that and optimize the work output per unit time that I have available to invest.
And there's like a micro and macro component to that as well, right? Like you talk, well, the way that you described it, thinking about task by task, confining yourself to a certain time period. Definitely, I experienced this too. Makes you highly efficient, maybe even more focused because there is a clock running against you. But even touching on your first vacation as a self-employed person, that hits home. That hits me so hard as well, in so many different ways. But in one way that it spoke to me, which kind of ties into this kind of what was it called? Parkinson
Oh,
law?
Parkinson's law. Yeah.
Parkinson's law. Like I almost think about it in a way where like leading up to your vacation, you also have to be super efficient with the 30, 60 days leading up to it because you know that you're not going to be like on the clock, always available while you're away. I thought there's so much to unpack there too. Um, Definitely want to touch a little bit on just how you feel about going on vacation as a self-employed individual. Did you feel anxiety? Did you feel liberated? Yeah, what were your emotions and takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think the full spectrum. So there was excitement at the beginning, and then also being able to kind of work going into it and knowing that I would have some windows to work while I was on vacation. There's two parts to that. You know, I'm also a big fan of when you're on vacation and stepping away. But as you and I both know now, when you own and run your own business, especially in the startup days where things are very reliant on you, you kind of have to be plugged in. But I noticed one big takeaway there is that when you're doing something that you enjoy and that you're completely invested in and it doesn't feel like work, it's not as taxing as it would be if it were work for something that you're not fully invested and passionate about. And so that made getting up and doing things relatively easy because it just felt like part of the day. And really, my life has become that way. I'm trying to break down for me the kind of the chains of the boundaries of that 8 hour workday, 40-hour work week. You know, my grandparents, parents, you know, that's just ingrained. And then when you get out of college or you're interning, you hear it, and then when you get out, you see that and you're living it, and it's really a big mindset shift for me. And so this vacation really catalyzed the notion that you could kind of work for anywhere, work from anywhere, and work during certain time windows and still be hyper productive, which was a great benefit. That bringing it back now, it's not so much about that Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 type grind. It's more about the most effective windows and that Saturday and Sunday, while everybody else is kind of off traditionally, it doesn't mean that you're not going to work, because if you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, then it really doesn't feel like work per se. So that part of it, and then on the other side of the emotional coin, definitely had some trepidation and anxiety around it because as we're managing the financial portion of a startup and going on a trip that's an investment in myself and kind of spending money at a time where we're still ramping and trying to generate more and more revenue, it kind of felt a little bit more, or it was definitely harder to kind of get into the vacation mindset when you know that you're not getting paid while you're off, and you know you don't have a big sum that you're sitting on, you're really grinding right now. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I say that faded over the course of the vacation, and coming back felt definitely rejuvenated, refreshed, and excited to hop back into it and kind of get in back into the routine and the grind with everything that we've got going on.
Yeah. I mean, we pour so much into our business. It's so funny how the human mind works, right? This idea of even just rewarding ourselves a little bit, we always see how it's taking away from the business. But I mean, I think absolutely well deserved. If folks haven't heard the news from the last episode, even the episode prior to that, there's been a lot of great traction that Shane and Mary has made on the business front, and looking outside in, I think it's so well deserved, and I hope that you guys as a family can go on a vacation sooner rather than later and really um, kind of take some time off and rejuvenate as a family. So looking forward to that coming soon.
Thanks. Yeah, we're getting closer with summer coming up and the kids will be out of school. So we've got a couple different trips planned. The first one will be in end of June, early July, up to Maine, where Mary has some family up there, and we actually got married up in Bath, Maine. So we're heading up that way. We get some beach time, and the water's usually a little bit chillier up there, but we'll at least get out on the sand and have some time on a beach and get to enjoy some family time mixed in with that. So definitely excited for that and have some milestones set up that we want to achieve before we get to do that, and will be a great reward system for hitting our goal when we're ready to go.
Heck yeah, super motivating. I mean, talking about vacation, Yuna and I, we booked tickets to go to Korea together for the first time since getting married. It's long
Wow.
overdue. That's coming up in about a month. So, I mean, talk about, putting yourself in um, a specific time frame or, running the clock for the next 30 days. There's a lot of work that I'm going to be doing to kind of get ahead of the curve. That way I can sort of, really get into vacation mode. I mean, the time difference in and of
Hmm.
itself creates a bit of friction to even try and do work and, attend meetings and do all that type of stuff. Um, but yeah, really looking forward to vacation. I feel like right now is that time when a lot of people, whether corporate or self-employed, are kind of thinking about taking time off. I mean, I feel like the beginning of the year has been just insane. Um, Whatever industry you're in, for me particularly, this first quarter has been just tumultuous and exciting. I think with craziness, there's a lot of opportunity to seek. But it'll be really nice for just, a week and a half, 2 weeks to shut it down for a bit and reward ourselves. Like we say, we pour our souls into our business. And I think there's a time and place for us to kind of reap, the rewards of it and take care of yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's exciting for one that you all are going over there. I hope someday to get over there and maybe even with you and your wife, and that would be a lot of fun. I haven't really been able to get. We've been to Europe a little bit, but definitely world travel is on our list over time. So I'm excited about the potential of getting over there and having somebody show us around. But yeah, back to you and your wife going over. That's going to be, I think, a great and well deserved trip on your side. I can imagine, given your industry, how much chatter there is, probably mostly centered around AI and the disruptions going on there. So, and I think we're just at the starting point of that. So it's going to be, yeah, kind of a the way the next few years play out. It's going to be super interesting, especially for your field and for mine. I think mine engineering and kind of in industrial space in general moves much slower, of course, and so the things that you're learning are going to be exciting because it will come around here in due time, once it infiltrates over on the engineering side and the industrial side, which it's coming. And yeah, so how about for you getting ready to head over on vacation, be out of pocket probably for most of that? Are you setting up a playbook? Do you have a framework put together? Have you mapped it all out, or are you just now like, okay, I need to set up my frameworks and my maps and milestones for heading out on the trip?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces to this one. I think first and foremost, with all of my clients, we're at a pretty good place as far as um, expectations around what the upcoming week looks like. So what that means for me is I can get ahead and create
Okay.
those deliverables and projects ahead of time and kind of deliver them, while I'm away. So we're at a pretty good cadence in terms of back and forth, and I can kind of anticipate where things are going to be around that time. But more importantly, because that's more of like a band-aid solution, right? Just kind of getting ahead and making sure that things are still up and running while I'm traveling. I think almost serendipitously, I've been talking to more people and really having more internal conversations with myself, but also with my wife around what is Key Rise in the next year, next 5 years. Um, and did a little bit of a retrospective. And, I was just talking to my wife yesterday about this too, how, when I'm so in the weeds about my business, doing client work, thinking about this strategically, thinking about that, I always, I almost forget that I've hit my goals for what I intended to do since the inception, right? It was this proverbial like 3 to 4 day work week, um, making, a certain number that I wanted to make every single month. I've exceeded that goal. And so it was a nice moment to take a step back and say, hey, even if I didn't do anything and just maintained what I have right now, we're in a really solid spot. Now, part of me is okay with that, but also a big part of me is like, I want to keep growing. I love the idea of building things, helping more businesses out there, and this idea of scaling my business has been a big priority for the last few weeks. Kind of long story short, I have been talking to a few people about potentially outsourcing some of more of the recurring deliverables. And so, yeah, like my current focus up until now has been really just executing and delivering, right? Delivering for my clients. But now I think I want to shift my focus over towards sales and marketing. I want to bring in some more deals, all the while identifying some support members that can help with more of the executional tasks that are taking a lot of my time. So tied to that, I've now restructured what my net new goals are. I have a revenue goal of 30% increasing year over year. And then some softer goals around how I'm selling these deals. Up until now, it's been a lot tied to my hours,
Mhm.
but I want to change how I sell my deals to a much more value based and like a true retainer style business. I think that plays much more nicely into the scalability of how I operate my business. So I'm in talks with a few people as far as outsourcing some work, and then also really thinking about how I want to tackle this new kind of focus around sales and marketing. And so, kind of a long-winded way of answering your question as far as if that time comes or when that time comes for me to go and travel or do other things that's not Key Rise related. Hopefully, this scaled up version of my business where there are people doing more of the day-to-day tasks can really offload, some will create some more time for me to either travel or spend on other areas of my business.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's so exciting. And as you were talking through that with the scaling and everything, it really triggered in me a couple a couple different times I've heard this said in different ways, but basically there's a difference between creating an actual business and then creating a job. And I've seen a lot of folks who are kind of entrepreneurs, if you want to call it that. They're out on their own, right? And they have a business per se, but really all they have is just a job that they're tied into. And one of the folks that was an early mentor for me, who was definitely entrepreneurial, owning lots of different businesses over the years and things, said, a business is something that you can walk away from and it will still generate value. And you don't have to be tied into anything that's going on day to day. And if you don't have that, then you just have a job. And so I am experiencing a similar transition here to what you're saying, in that I am leveraging contractors and strategic partners to do quite a bit of the heavy lifting. And, Mary and I have a lot of discussions about this, where it's a trade-off between the revenue and profit margin coming in versus the overhead cost of subcontracting it out. And there's a delicate balance there, especially in the early startup days. But one guiding principle, of course, I always go back to is buy back your time, and the buyback principle. And then Dan Martell has the buyback ladder, and it really starts with, if you're going to free up your time in the business. First one is an executive assistant or a virtual assistant, which we can talk about at some point here, because we're getting ready to dive in on that on my side. And then, second is execution. And interestingly enough, that's the part where I'm living quite a bit in, but I've also been spreading it out with some subcontractors and have noticed a definite different feeling than when you're doing all the work, the delivery, the execution work yourself. So I'm excited, as you embark on that journey, to see how it frees up your mental energy and capacity as well as your time. And I think the benefit there is going to be just a huge step change for you, I think. So excited to keep following you on that journey and staying up with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fear. When you said like eating into your profit margin, that's like one of the biggest things that kind of sounds the alarms for me, right? I kind of need to get over that fear, and just acknowledge that, for the next 3, 6, maybe 9 months, I obviously won't be making the same amount that I'm making today, but really thinking about the long-term picture in all of this. Um, and what's pretty cool is, in the world that we live in right now, with the ways that we can do projects and execute on deliverables even faster with AI solutions. I think that can play really nicely um, with limiting the profit margin that, historically a subcontract would eat up entirely, right? Um, so I'm kind of working in it like in tandem with one another, having actual subcontractors, but also building standard operating procedures around some of these recurring deliverables. That way I can train this person to um, do a task that takes maybe an hour down to 30 minutes. That just creates a lot more efficiency. Um, and I think over time, the amount of time that I'm able to buy back through approaching it that way will allow me to focus on much more higher value activity, whether that's sales, marketing, or maybe an entirely different career. Who knows? But I think the name of the game right now is, like you said, that buyback mentality.
That's awesome. Yeah, I also like the one thing that's been stuck in my head is thinking about that first time you get paid while you're sleeping, and how different that's going to feel, going from traditional, I guess, the earliest days of when I started working, when I was probably, gosh, 12 years old or something like that, where you make your first amount of money for either a task or amount of time you invest. And then really your time is the driver of your income. And then when you're able to separate the time and the income, that becomes a really special moment. And that's, ultimately something that we're going to try to head towards, is where our time is not a direct linear input of the revenue of the company and the profit for the company. And yeah, so I always think about making money while you sleep, and that being just a really big day. And maybe it's not necessarily while you sleep in every case, but while you're doing something else that's higher value and you're still getting paid for it, that's going to be an exciting time and transition and step change.
Yeah, for sure. And let me try to like paint the picture of how I'm approaching this because I would love your kind of wisdom on this too. I know you're learning a lot about this as well. Um, and I'm gonna make up some numbers right now. So the way that I'm thinking about scaling, um, I want to bring on someone who's not, and this is very kind of contrary to popular advice and belief. I'm I'm thinking about not bringing on someone super junior level, someone um, almost neck and neck in terms of the years of experience that I have. But the difference between this person and myself is that the subcontractor likes to focus and do executional work,
Mhm.
which if we look at it from a pay grade scale is slightly on the lower end. Um, so I'm thinking about bringing someone on of that caliber, not junior level, a little bit more mid senior level, but to start work on more junior level tasks. So that's kind of phase one of scaling this business. And then phase two is as I'm able to now use that time that I've gained from subcontracting workout, I'll find more deals. And for every net new client, this subcontractor would not be working on just the executional work, but would actually lead the engagement, um, doing much more of the strategy creation. Think of it as, I'm coming in for the first 10% of things, still kind of meeting with the client here and there, making sure everything's going well, and then obviously coming in towards the end around renewal time to really um, help our chances of renewing that client for another 12 months. So I'm thinking about scaling it in that way. So I guess my question there, I'm not sure if there's even a question, but this has just been a very new thought to me, and I'm trying to speak about it as much as possible, meeting with a lot of people about it.
Mhm.
It's scary to think about bringing on someone that's not so junior level, but structuring that engagement with the subcontractor that, hey, there's this first phase where you're just helping out with more of the junior level stuff. But the real goal is for then me to bring on some new clients where you will be much more of that kind of strategic partner to them. Um, and from a financial perspective, what that allows me to do is it gives me a little bit more flexibility as far as not shelling out so much to bring on help, um, but then willing to shell out more as I bring in new clients, thereby really limiting my time in front of the client, passing on the lion's share of work to that person. Um, and over time, I think that creates a much more kind of a scenario where I'm not always tied to the hours that we're selling.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm not going to be selling hours anymore. I want to go with this value-based pricing. But that's kind of how that's how I'm kind of approaching this. And the main driver to this, I think it was two things. It really was the financial part of it in the beginning. I didn't want to eat too much away into my profit margin, but I really want to bring on the best talent as possible without having to train so much. Now, that could be a very bad approach to how I'm thinking about scaling my business. Um, I'm a stubborn guy, but when it comes to business, I am so open-minded, and I love to hear about others' experience. I've talked to other founders, I've talked to other people that are in a similar position that I am, or has already scaled his or her business in the last couple of years. But I'd love to get your reaction. Anything that pops out to you there that you're like, hey, maybe not the right way to go, or interesting that you're going about it this way? Would love to get your live reaction to my approach here.
Yeah, right out of the gate, I would say you said two things that to me are spot on and check the box. First one being the caliber of person you're going to hire right out of the gate or subcontract to, right? Having that person be, and this would be true whether it's a subcontractor or a first hire per se. Um, of course, I'm always going to say after an EAVA, but that's a little separate topic. But that person for delivery and execution and maybe fringing to other things, like maybe some of the lower level tasks that would be kind of categorized as EAVA or up the chart to help with like things like renewal or leading into renewals. Um, Short answer is having that person be a utility person who is a high enough caliber to work above their traditional range, as well as not afraid to go down below and kind of span the range of like complexity of tasks, diversity of tasks, all of that. You really want that utility person right out the gate. So I think you're spot on with that. And ultimately that's going to just allow you to utilize them and give them more and more responsibility, and help buy back more of your time, like you mentioned. I think it's also a good strategy right out of the gate to start them on something very focused, make sure that you work together well, that having, and I would also just set them loose on like documenting everything that you're doing when you're doing training and onboarding calls, kickoffs calls, and check-ins, just recording everything and really and then now with Teams, Zoom, all the platforms, you can take that transcript that comes out of the recording and just make a playbook out of it using AI in a matter of minutes, and then just saving that into your repository. That's a huge win there. That will, once that person either moves up or moves on, you're going to have this nice foundational framework, and you're not doing all the retraining. And then the second part that I heard you say that was also spot on, as not only based on my experience, but also the program that I'm in with tons and tons of people who are highly successful entrepreneurs, is this notion of the first 10%. So the rule that we have in the coaching program is 10-80-10, and that is that basically you line out and get the first 10% set up, you hand it off to them, they do the middle 80%, you come back in to finalize review the last 10%. And in that comes the saying like 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome. So uh, it's going to be, you have a great strategy and framework laid out. It aligns with the top guidance that I've gotten, and even in my experience, what I've seen so far is finding people who subcontractors or hires that are a great value, where they're going to bring, um, they're going to generate value for yourself and your client beyond what their maybe pay rate and pay structure is. And a third little piece about that is to incentivize it. It's like most people probably in your world and mine and kind of this agency structure work on a set hourly rate or some type of retainer based on which amounts to hours or output. But if you have that, but then also put in place the right incentives so that when they are successful in doing the things that you need them to do and generating more value, they also benefit from some type of like profit sharing structure or reward system that, more efficient work, better quality, more renewals, whatever the metrics are. But if they have an incentive structure, that's a huge piece there that will help kind of bring all that back in and keep them motivated to keep moving forward at the highest quality.
I love that incentive structure. That's such a good idea. I have to
Yeah,
think that one.
I think incentive structures are highly underutilized, and even at like Fortune 500 companies that I've been a part of, um, some of them do it well. used to do it well. I don't know about anymore, and I know that there are others out there that do it better. But I would definitely say that um, being on your own, having the freedom and flexibility to kind of throw out incentives whenever you so choose, and with the metrics you so choose, is a huge uplift and will transform the way that the work gets done in the business and the renewals and just the overall creation of the business and growth. So I'm really big on that, and figuring out ways to structure not only the base pay for the job, but then also incentives in there to incentivize beating any baseline metrics that you have put in place.
Look, enough about me and my business. What's been going on with Opnovit in the last couple of weeks?
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all your updates. That's really exciting. And I am honored to be a part of the discussions of you going through this next phase of growth with it and where it's going to lead you. And I think it's an interesting time on your side of like choosing to do this. And also, there's going to be, in for sure, the short term 0 to 2 years, I think a lot of demand for consulting and advising and implementing strategies because of the way that AI is just upsetting the traditional uh, way of work in general, but also specifically around search engine usage.
I mean, 100%. Like the majority of my conversations are around how do we how do we become more visible in generative AI search in all of these large language models. Um, and then the other piece to that is how do we leverage AI to become more efficient with the output that allows us to become more visible. Um, we'll get into that a little bit today.
Yeah.
There's a bit
Uh,
of an AI component to today's episode that we'll get into.
yeah, stick around because we're going to get a little bit, start diving in. And I think over time, it will be natural for our podcast to not only cover the entrepreneurial side and also personal side, but I think a big third pillar is going to be AI because it is coming, and it is going to be a transformation that none of us have ever experienced before. I think it will certainly outweigh the internet even, and beyond that, like beyond the comprehension of what we even think it's going to be. So excited to get into that with you and the updates on my side. So coming back from vacation, we are deep in it. We're getting to the point now where we've got some projects in execution, some finishing up, some kind of mid execution, and then proposals, as well as like BD initial contact meetings happening. And so they're all happening. The sales cycle is now spinning, where we have deals in different stages of the pipeline, and we have projects in different phases. And so now it's starting to get a little bit harder to manage and keep track of everything, and optimize the time and investment, and make sure we're focusing on the delivery side most critically, but also keeping our sales and marketing machine moving. So we are deep into that, and it's going pretty well. Also trying to leverage AI to work more efficiently in all of those areas and do more in less amount of time is really the name of the game, and have had pretty good success with that. I would say not enough to have a playbook ready to go for it, but we're definitely dabbling, trialing, and seeing good results. So that's exciting. And let's see. I had a networking event earlier this week down in Delaware for some hydrogen project potential, and that was exciting. It's always good to get face to face in front of people and have those discussions versus instant messaging, LinkedIn messaging, email, cold calls, all that. And also seeing the word of mouth referral network starting to spool up and do its thing. So just one happy client referring over to others, and then doing good work for them, keeping the clients happy, and really your I think there's probably a saying out there about something like your happiest customers are your best marketing tools for you, because yeah, that's been a huge win for us in just gaining more market and gaining new leads and potential projects. So yeah, all things are exciting right now, and especially I don't know if you felt it, but with the change in the weather, the time change, it's like, man, it feels a little bit like a rebirth coming out of winter for sure. So it's nice to have that additional sunlight in the evening and just feel kind of refreshed and energized heading into the what'll be the end of the third or end of the first quarter here.
Oh, I absolutely feel that, man. I'm sure a lot of people share that feeling. I do want to stress how beautiful it is. The thing with word of mouth referrals is, especially as an early startup, I found that the lion's share of my deals have come through word of mouth.
Hmm.
That's not to say, though, that it's just the quality of work that you provide, although that's probably the most important thing, obviously. Um, but what worked for me, in addition to that, was being visible on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been such a great source for me. It's served, I think, as a way for me to impart my point of views on conversations that are happening. Um, but on the flip side of things, it also reminded a lot of people that, hey, Sam is a consultant. And when that opportunity presented itself to his or her plate, that person was reminded that, oh, Sam is someone that I could reach out to. So I'd say that's not necessarily, a cold, it's definitely not a cold email or a cold pitch, but it's really just being where your target audience is for your business. And then, of course, that word of mouth referral adds even more fuel to that fire for that person to then reach out and kind of connect you with that potential client. So, Mark, your pipeline plump is probably one of the hardest things to do as a service based industry or business. It's rewarding as heck once you kind of figure things out and you find your own recipe and your own structure for doing things. Um, but man, like I can feel that faucet drying up at times,
Hmm. Yeah,
especially
definitely.
when you're not on LinkedIn as much or you're not going to networking events. It truly does feel like the amount of effort you put in, the output really correlates with that. Now, it might not happen in the first 30 days, but over
Hmm.
time, the more time that you put into your pipeline, things do come in return. But it's tough. It's tough. In the beginning, word of mouth was so huge. But now I feel like I'm at that point where I need to not only be more active on LinkedIn, but really sit down and think and strategize where I want to be visible, whether it's cold pitching to private equity firms that have a portfolio of clients that really align to some of the strategic work that I've done already, or literally just going to networking events, what have or there's a lot of ways that we can find deals, but yeah, it's a muscle that we always need to work on, and man, it's I think the one of the most important things to run a sustaining business, keeping that pipeline plump.
Yes. Oh, big time. Yeah, that's to me, that's the name of the game. And even if you were thinking about starting a business, the first thing number of books talk about doing is going out and actually like pre-selling in whatever fashion you can.
Right.
4 Hour Work Week. Tim Ferriss has a great like protocol, more around tailored to like product sales, but you could adapt that. Just have AI, ChatGPT, kind of give it the framework and adapt that to whatever you're trying to sell, and then going out and doing a pre-sale on it and seeing if you actually are going to get traction there, and with kind of a minimal investment, because at the end of the day, if you can't sell whatever you're offering, then you're not going to be successful. And it's the most critically important piece, is that marketing and sales. So getting your name out there, getting people aware, and then being able to move them through the sales cycle pipeline and close deals. That's really the most important piece. And then Typically, at least for me, from a strategic standpoint and problem solving standpoint, like delivery stuff is relatively easy problems to solve because there's a lot more defined constraints around it. And so you if you're creative and you have experience and a good network, you can kind of come up with something that is hopefully profitable to solve your delivery and execution. But yeah, the marketing and sales is definitely more nebulous, more wide open, and takes a lot of trial and error as well as structure and discipline to just keep lifting those weights, keep building that muscle because it atrophies fast, and you don't want to get caught to a point where you've run out of deals in the pipeline.
Yeah. And look, like our entire career, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've been tacticians, we've been strategists. We've rarely had to think about bringing in the deals for our employers. Um,
Totally.
I mean, I had a couple of years experience of doing that, but it was still very minor. It was right at the finish line. We're just kind of pitching and selling services. I'm not going out and looking for net new deals.
Mm.
So this is a brand new muscle as business owners that we have to really work on. And sure, like it made me feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but when something's uncomfortable, that's probably something that you need to work on, and you're probably on the right track. Not always just deferring to things that you're good at, and getting better at the areas that you're slightly deficient in. So, yeah, that's what I gotta say about that. Look, we've got a few minutes left here until the hour mark. Let's talk a little bit about AI and
Yeah.
Shane and Mary's business while we're at it. So there's multiple takeaways here, right? For the audience, I think for myself too, we'll get to learn a little bit more about Obnovit,
Mhm.
who Obnovit serves, the target audience that they're trying to get in front of. And along with that, we'd love to kind of unpack, and admittedly, Shane and I, we're learning about this day in and day out. Just the AI landscape, it changes every second, every minute. There's new tools coming out. Um, but I think one thing around AI that I want to say before we dive into this more kind of technical session is you can I had this feeling of fear with AI. Not in the way that you might think of. I had the fear of not knowing everything. Like there's so much that I want to do and learn about that it was almost crippling. Like I just don't have the time of day to learn all this stuff. And so when I switched my perspective to what is a part of my business that I want to create more efficiencies in and just focus on that task and be okay with that, that really just like broke me loose, broke the shackles off, and allowed me to just really focus on one problem set at a time. And that one thing that I focused on several weeks ago was creating GPTs. I started creating GPTs many months ago, just for like personal use cases. But for my business, I started to use it for this one specific deliverable that each of my clients needed. And that deliverable was twofold. One was identifying content topics that my target persona that would resonate with my target persona, and then supplement to that creating an actual content brief that a writer can then use to generate that piece of content. This GPT has saved me so much time. Before I had this, it would probably take me 45 minutes to an hour, soup to nuts, to identify a topic and create a brief. Now it
Mhm.
takes me anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes. So it's
Right.
multiply that by the amount of times I do this for each individual client, multiplied by how many clients I have. It's been an immense time saver, and alongside that, I've been learning new skills. So we're going to do something similar for Obnovit. And Shane, I'll definitely be asking you some questions along the way. Let me go ahead, share my screen.
Sounds great. While you're getting that set up, I think there's a really important layer there that Sam mentioned, and that is AI is not here necessarily to take your job. But what will happen is people who are using AI will take your jobs. And people who know how to use it will get more work and will do it more efficiently and ultimately be more cost competitive. And so, for every single person, no matter what you do, AI is something that you need to be thinking about, talking about, and integrating, because if you're not, your competitor is, there's going to be a huge disparity in a very short amount of time.
Yes. And honestly, it could be for personal use cases. I'll give a couple of
Mm-hmm.
fun examples.
Yeah.
I just moved into a condo where there's a board. If you live in a condo, you know the board documents, the meeting minutes, the apartment rules, all that stuff is so dense to read. A GPT is a great way to summarize, but also add new meeting notes, new information that's released by the board. You can constantly feed it more and more information, and it will refine itself over time as you give it feedback as well. And you can really just prompt any question that you have so that you don't have to comb through all those dense documents to get the answer that you're seeking. Another fun example was I was finding myself analyzing real estate deals and utilizing calculators that I needed to either pay for or that I just didn't really trust. So I created my own. There's a GPT where now I can literally drop in the address, the listing price, the location, what my overall goal would be to get out of this property and this project. And I've refined various GPTs that shows me the return on investment, the years that it would take for me to see my returns, what kind of work it would require to get it to a place where I can then rent it out. So there's a lot of fun use cases outside of just your day-to-day work that GPTs can really unlock.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So the assignment for right now. Number one, let's create this narrative where Shane and Mary wants to now focus on their web visibility through generating content that solves a pain point for their users, that wants to answer questions that their users have, thereby creating a bit of trust between these people and businesses out there and the brand of Obnovit. So the first thing that I want to do is just introduce GPTs a little bit. There's a lot of large language models out there. I don't think Claude is able to create GPTs right now. That's where ChatGPT shines in comparison to Claude. To be able to create GPTs, you unfortunately need a paid subscription. I think it's about $20 a month. If you ask me, I think it's absolutely worth it. I wouldn't even blink an eye to it. But you do need a paid subscription to be able to create custom GPTs. So with that said, let's head into the custom GPT section. You'll see a bunch of GPTs that I've already created. We'll go ahead and create a brand new one for Shane and Mary's business. Now, you can go through a prompting methodology here to get to your ultimate GPT. I always found it nice to be able to kind of control the narrative to a certain degree and configure it myself. So we'll go with the configure route for this time. We can definitely play around with the create one in another episode. So just a bit of a walkthrough here. You can create a cool little image. If you want to upload your own photo for your GPT, you can use DALL-E and it'll automatically create one for you. We want to name our GPT. We'll name this one Obnovit Mid-Funnel Content Opportunities. And what I mean by mid-funnel, that's really targeting folks that know that they have, a challenge or a problem. They're not necessarily ready to make a purchase or contact a business. They're really just in that phase of the buying funnel where they want specific high value content that's really catered towards a specific use case. Okay, the description, we're just describing what the GPT is going to do. This GPT will provide mid-funnel content opportunities for my website. Okay, the instructions is really kind of the most important part here. So we want to be really prescriptive as far as what this GPT does for us. So what I like to do when we create a GPT is I first like to go to ChatGPT, and when it comes to identifying content opportunities, one of the most important thing is do we understand our target audience? So Shane, I'm going to ask you some questions, but before we do, let's see what ChatGPT can do for us. So I'm going to prompt it by saying, can you visit novit.com, surf the live web regarding the energy. How do we describe your industry? Your energy. How would you describe your company? Well, the industry that you're in.
Just start out as sustainability and decarbonization consulting and solutions.
Surf the live web.
Everybody that's following along, Sam's got another browser open right now.
Sorry about
we're
that.
seeing your. There you go. Now we're back, and this is just the general ChatGPT 4.0.
And act as an expert within the field to outline the target persona at Novit seeking to provide services. See what it spits out.
Yeah, I love using ChatGPT. Mary and I use that very often in the sales and marketing arenas because it's not my background, so it's amazing.
Right. All right. We won't read through all of it. We'll just do a general scan, but you guys kind of get the idea that we can use AI to really speed up some of that initial upfront work here. So we got industries, industry size, titles, some of their goals and challenges, which I think is great, potential needs and pain points, some decision-making factors, if and when they're ready to work with a consultant. So that's great. So let's copy this. Let's go back into our GPT tab. We'll drop in what we've copy pasted. It looks like there's some weird pasting going on here, so just bear with me.
Oh, yeah, I think that's for where it's combing the internet with the hyperlinks, probably.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and just
you could probably do it though. Oh yeah.
See if that copy button does a better job. All right. We'll work with that.
Yeah, it'll definitely be able to work with that.
Sweet. All right. So now we've got our target persona. I'm sure it could be fleshed out even more, right? But just for the sake of this exercise, we'll keep it as is. All right. So now we want mid-funnel content opportunities based on this target persona profile. So, based on the target persona profile provided below, and we're just now instructing what this GPT is going to do. Please identify mid-funnel content opportunities that will not only rank highly. And you know what? Let me just dictate this. On Google on Google, but also provide very helpful and memorable content to the target persona, period. When returning the content opportunity topics, provide it in a table format with the following: target keyword, monthly search volume on Google, content topic. Okay, so let's just review that. Based on target persona profile provided, please identify mid-funnel content operators that will not only rank on Google, but also provide helpful content when returning, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Cool. So we're going to hit close. Conversation starter, that's really how you initiate the conversation, right? So it can be, I typically do something cheesy like ready to provide some content opportunities. And that's just a way to kind of trigger the GPT, and then you can provide some more details to then activate the GPT to return the value. Capabilities, web search, Canvas. I guess DALL-E we really don't need. We don't really need images here. Canvas, I'm actually not sure exactly what Canvas is.
Man, I think that is when you're in there and interacting with it, it will create stuff in what they call the canvas, and then you can
I see.
create like content, almost like a pseudo content in the platform, but not necessarily a requirement.
Gotcha. Let's keep it to the web for now. That we definitely want. Let's see. I'm just reviewing if there's any additional instructions we want to give. I think for now, given that, if it's a brand new website, there's no existing content. There's nothing that we necessarily need to prompt as far as reviewing any existing content that you have. That way we're not duplicating pieces of content. So let's test this out. It's the first time doing it. Let's see if this outputs anything interesting for us. There's a preview section here, so we'll use that. Let's trigger it to go. All right, let's see what we've got here. So it's outputting it in a table format, which is great for me. From an SEO perspective, I like to see it in a structured way like this. We have the target keyword, and from an SEO perspective, that's kind of the target keyword that we prioritize as the one that we know people are searching for on average 1,500 times a month. We love to rank highly for it with the content that will ultimately generate against it. Here's the content topic associated with that target keyword. So this is pretty great. I mean, this takes a lot of time to do. It's kind of traditional keyword research that business would be tasked to do to come up with a list of target keywords, but also relevant topics associated with it. So this allows us to first have a good kind of bird's eye view on potential topics that are being searched for, that aligns with our target persona, and really brings us then to what do we do next? How do we get closer towards generating content? And so that's another GPT that I've created for a lot of my clients, where we can now prompt it in a different way. And we'll use the same GPT. We'll just update it here, where we can now prompt it to create a content brief for us. So let me rephrase all this. This GPT will provide a content brief. Move the instructions. Oh, that was not a good idea because I lost the content opportunities.
Review. If you want just like one of the keywords, I think was like, just call it industrial manufacturing decarbonization. If you wanted to do like a content brief around that.
Okay. Keep that one in mind, Shane. We'll get to that in just a second. For the instructions, we'll go with, I will provide you with a target keyword period. Please provide a content brief that is optimized to rank in Google, period. Within the brief, provide the following: URL, title tag, meta description, H1 tag, questions to answer based on the people also ask section, an FAQ, and surf obnovit.com for potential interlinking opportunities. So this is all kind of just SEO jargon to give me every kind of detail to create a very good piece of content.
Awesome.
Let me just go back here now, update some of the typos. Q, H1 tag.
For those listening, are you using the MacBook dictation
I
trigger? Okay.
There's probably better ones out there, but I've just been fiddling around with this, and it's not too bad.
Yeah, no, the Apple one is really good. The Windows one is laggy a little bit, but what everybody's observing here is subtle, but the dictation part is going to become very important because what's ultimately going to happen with AI is the connection from our brain to the computer is no longer going to be limited by typing on a keyboard. It's basically going to be how fast can you get your thoughts into concise language. So this is happening before our eyes, but yeah, dictation is going to become, it's probably going to eliminate the heavy usage of the keyboard here before too long.
All right, so just wrapped up the instructions, updated the conversation starter. So Shane, what was that target keyword again?
Let's just do industrial manufacturing decarbonization.
So this is very basic SEO. There's so much more that I would love to talk about as far as the intent behind a certain query, the type of content that would best match that intent. I think beyond all of that, the most important thing that I want to say is that I am still on the camp of AI produced content is not the way to go. I think to a certain degree, you can leverage AI for content creation, but what separates good content from bad content is Shane, is Mary, is that expertise, that true unique point of view and even style of writing that makes it much more engaging, much more helpful. But when you use AI, in theory, all businesses out there could have the same piece of content, the same point of view. So the businesses that leverage their internal employees or internal copywriters and the true expertise of the business the best within their pieces of content, those are the companies that are going to thrive in this new age of SEO. Just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. I'm not sitting here saying use GPTs to create content, publish it, and you'll be good. In fact, that actually might hurt you in the long run. So coming back to this, looks like we've got the workings of a pretty good content brief here. We've got the URL. What we're trying to demonstrate here is kind of the power of GPT that, from the smallest things of not having to type all this out to it giving you its best shot at an optimized URL, an optimized title tag for you to just upload into a brief and kick it over to your content writer or your in-house SEO person. It really, really trims down a lot of time with pretty high quality work. So meta description has an H1 tag. It has some questions that we'd like to answer. It provides a bit of an FAQ, which is always a nice piece to add on an article.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good start. I think one thing to note.
And also
Sorry, go ahead. The last thing I was going to say is Obnov currently doesn't have a lot of URLs, so it wouldn't necessarily provide you the links that we want to link to from this content. But from experience, it is quite good at pulling
Mm-hmm.
now that it can search not only the live web, but actual websites. It's been fairly good at providing links that we want to incorporate as well. Sorry, back to you.
No, yeah, I was just highlighting here based, how fast this can happen. And it really, like you were saying, you don't want to utilize it for your final polished content creation, but what you want to use it as is a tool that can accelerate the creation of the content and also helps break through the writer's barrier per se of like just starting something and like where do I start? And if you literally have an idea and you start engaging with ChatGPT or any of the other LLMs and GPTs, like you will immediately start making progress. And for me, that's been one of the biggest things is it's like I need to do this. Even just the thought of like going to ChatGPT, prompting it and all that, it starts getting your brain moving and you're getting really good feedback and you have to filter it. But it's just accelerating that. And it's also making those lower value, lower level tasks just that much more efficient for you to complete and do it in a shorter amount of time and waste less of your energy on that so you can focus on the final product, the strategy, the personal touch of everything of how to optimize it. But this is doing a lot of that legwork and helping be almost like a conversational expert that you would want to talk to about something.
100%. And look, the briefs that I send over to my clients, it's riddled with additional comments and a lot of revision, really trying to, again, squeeze out all the expertise and the point of views that the business owner or the internal writers have, and really layering all of that information into this brief. This is just a quick way to get to step one. And man, the application here goes beyond just this, right? There's so much. Again, I think that can overwhelm people, and in fact, maybe that's the pitfall that I'd like to share. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Find an area of your business or in your life that you think can be sped up with the help of AI, and tackle that problem. And then you'll kind of learn how to work with things, whether it's a GPT or an actual agent. You'll find one thing to focus on, solve that problem, then move on to the next. If you are always scouring the web and learning about the newest thing that's coming out, it can really bury you. It can put you in a spot where you feel like you're totally behind, and makes you really passive and more reactive to things. Don't feel that way. Try not to. Everyone feels it. Try to identify one or two things that you can solve it, and move. Move from there. I think once you build that momentum, it gets even more and more exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. For an at-home example, creating a custom training program. If you have something going on right now, I'm struggling with an Achilles injury, so coming up with kind of Achilles safe workout programs in a specific dialect, like in CrossFit or whatever the case may be. I now am using somebody else actually had a GPT out there that's public facing that you can use. And so I'm prompting that and teaching it about my preferences. And now that's creating my daily workout routine while I'm kind of out of the normal um, CrossFit gym routine and doing my own. It's accelerated something that would have taken 30 plus minutes to put together and kind of searching and all of that to just a few prompts, and then I have it and I write it down and we're off and running. So it can help your life in so many different areas and just encourage people to not be afraid. And it's a tool like anything else, so the more you use it, the more comfortable you're going to get and see where it benefits you the most. But yeah, if we can help, hopefully, get people introduced to it and understand that it's not this overwhelming thing and everybody is capable of using it, that it will be beneficial in the long run. And feel free to reach out to us on the socials or via email. And we would be happy to discuss anything more around AI and ChatGPT and some of the more advanced stuff that we're getting into. And I think, Sam, I enjoyed this part. So I think periodically, or maybe even on each of our episodes, we'll carve out a little section for some AI discussion, because it's becoming just such a part of the day-to-day life right now.
Yeah, so exciting. And that email is, guys, Growthentic Podcast at gmail.com. If there's anything that you want to hear more about, or if there's something that you guys want to share, if someone's working on GPTs or anything within the realm of AI, of course, if you're running your own business and want to share things, feel free to reach out to us. But I know we're way over time today. This might have been the longest one we've done, but it's always a pleasure, Shane, to catch up with you. Hopefully, there were a couple of nuggets that people could take away. But truly awesome to hear updates personally, professionally, and yeah, I love these sessions with us. It not only is a good way to kind of review the past couple of weeks, but I think it's really invigorating and energizing, and motivating, because there's so much that we probably want to do, and I use you as a source of motivation and a big driver into really tackling those challenges.
Thanks. Yeah, likewise. I hope everybody got a little value from this episode. A little bit of the regression to the mean with a shorter episode last one, now a little longer this one. And I am just excited to be a part of this journey, and likewise equally motivated and complimented by your skills in going through this little exercise today that I'll be able to take back and triggered a thought for me next week or next episode of potentially taking what we did today, and then I have a little AI trick up my sleeve, if you want to call it that, to create a website in a matter of seconds. And maybe we can try and figure out how to take what you did and actually create that landing page with that content on it. Doesn't have to be anything refined, but get something there rough and show how fast this can be done now.
For sure. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.